Welcome to Civic Voters Education 2023 on Trust TV. Democracy is a process and involves participation of many stakeholders, political parties, citizens' judiciary, electoral body, among others. Just as election is vital to the emergence of a democratic leader, post-election activities should not be ignored because each of the processes counts to make a whole. There is the need, therefore, to carry all the segments of the society along in the electoral process. Voter and civic education are necessary to ensure that all constituents, men and women alike, understand their rights, their political system, and once again, understand the nitty-gritty and the A to Z in the electoral process. You are most welcome as we look at the role of election stakeholders such as citizens, the judiciary, the election management body, the media, among others in this episode. This program is facilitated by the Institute for Media and Society and funded by the European Union. The content of this broadcast do not reflect the views of Institute for Media and Society nor that of the European Union. To begin the program, let's take a look at some news highlights.
Assets comprising office equipment have been transferred to Nigeria Association of Women Journalists, NAWOJ, Kaduna State. Presenting the office equipment to the women journalists in Kaduna, IMS Executive Director Dr. Akin Akingbulu stated that the initiative was in line with the commitment of the European Union to empower women journalists across the country. Receiving the equipment on behalf of NAWOJ President Mrs. Ladi Bala, represented by Mrs. Grace Musa, appreciated IMS and EU for the magnanimity and promise to make judicious use of the equipment. Among the equipment donated to NAWOJ are office tables and chairs, air conditioner, among others. IMS had previously donated office equipment to the Nigeria Association of Women Journalists, NAWOJ, in Rivers and Adamawa states. Ahead of the inauguration of the new administration in the country, Yaga Africa has concluded plans to build the capacity of young newly elected legislators from across the country. The event tagged Convergence 5.0, which will hold from 5th to 6th June 2023 in Abuja for legislators-elect under 45 at the federal level or under 40 at the state level. The conference is designed to equip young legislators with the knowledge, skills, and network to be able to discharge their functions effectively. Also, the National Assembly and the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Study, NILS, with support from the Policy and Legal Advocacy Center, PLAC, has hosted a week-long induction program for members-elect of the 10th Assembly. This is in furtherance of European Union support to democratic governance in Nigeria. During the program, the European Union sponsored a panel discussion that emphasized the significance of civil society organizations, development partners, and the media as major drivers of growth and development through legislation. Also, during the session, the panelists urged the legislators to actively support bills that would foster development in the country. Institute for Media and Society, IMS, has equipped the capacity of 20 journalists drawn from 16 broadcast media organizations with technical skills and knowledge to spot, fact-check, and refute misinformation around sensitive post-election issues. Welcoming the participants at a two-day training in Kaduna, the Executive Director, Institute for Media and Society, Dr. Akin Akingbulu, said the training was part of European Union support to democratic governance project to support media components at ensuring that incidents is addressed. Dr. Akingbulu, while appreciating EU for the funding support, challenged the beneficiary to run with the vision and enlist themselves among the army of fact-checkers in the country. Earlier, the program manager, Mr. Timothy Bamidele, said the training is in line with the project document that media professional capacity to deal with misinformation is strengthened. The two facilitators, Mr. Kemi Busari and David Ajikobi, took the participants through the fundamentals and processes of fact-checking and exposed them to fact-checking tools. The training with the team, Capacity Building for Best Practices Presentation on Misinformation and Disinformation, drew participants from 16 broadcast media organizations and states in the north, including Abuja, Kaduna, Nasarawa, Kano, and Niger states.
Welcome back. To usher us into today's interview, let us first hear the thoughts of Nigerians on the expectations from some of these stakeholders during the election process.
What happened during the post-election was just like it has never happened before. We saw the spike towards the election, and Nigeria has never got it this good. Let me use that word because of we see election in the past, but the massive turnout of voters, it has never been like this. And kudos to Nigerian youth. And again, well, after the election, with what next? Some days time now we'll be swearing the president-elect, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and just urge Nigerians not to take, because we still have litigation in courts, and we have issues in the tribunal, and so many issues are arising from the election, what happened in the election, and the role that INEC itself play in the election. Many people are still not satisfied with what has happened, but what has happened, and we want to move forward. We just urge all Nigerians to accept and foster peace.
Election, I think, is one of the characteristics of every democracy. There must be a periodic exercise to check the popularity of the government. And again, in every given society, peace is very, very, very sacrosanct in achieving anything. Peace stroke stability. And I would like to say that and media is a critical stakeholder in the Nigeria project, take it or leave it. And we have done a lot during this election by our reportage. We always bring out reportage that will always bring Nigeria together, always project Nigeria in a very good light. The reportage that will not make people that will not incite people, but rather the reportage that will unite us as a people. So after the election, although there are a lot of skirmishes here and there, which is expected, because I have not seen the election that met the expectation of everybody, and the media the media came out openly and advised those who are not maybe who did not accept the exercise as it was, to seek redress through a court of competent jurisdiction, and which they are doing. So I also expect that sectorals should come out, because we don't have any other country except Nigeria. Peace is very, very important, and stability, because no nation can develop in an atmosphere of chaos and instability.
Our role is to just stay focused and maintain peace, because as it is right now, there's nothing we do or say that really matters anymore. The person that is there is already there. So all I have to say is that we just need to pray, and remain prayerful, remain calm and focused, because the only way to get the best out of any government is to remain calm and focused on we should see beyond now, beyond today, beyond this regime, beyond this century. Let us stay focused and help and support them in the little ways we can.
After the election, we should just allow the peace to reign in this country. Anybody that is not satisfied should go to court, and no fights. Let peace reign. That's what we need in this Nigeria.
Considering the last election, a lot of mileage had been made. Let me start with the EUSDGM program in Nigeria, which another phase that started last year. A lot of mileage were made, because the EUSDGM actually involved a lot of stakeholders in the electioneering process, talking about the political parties, talking about election management bodies, talking about civil society organizations, media. The intervention of the EUSDGN actually made a lot of impact they just concluded a 2023 general election. In terms of capacity building for different stakeholders, and talking about INEC, in terms of community outreach that most civil society organizations who are working on the intervention carried out. Do you want to talk about how the voter education, voter sensitization, civic education that were actually organized? So based on the intervention of the EUSDGN, it actually had a lot of mileage. Now, talking about mileage for the people, we would realize that the 2023 general election actually passed a lot of messages through the people. Take, for instance, this election actually had enabled even politicians to know that power belongs to the people. Now, when you talk about democracy, you are talking about people, you are talking about citizens. So this election actually awakened the consciousness of the people, especially the youths. You can see the number of youths that actually trooped out to perform their civic responsibility in terms of voting during that process. That actually showed that a lot of mileage were actually recorded. Not only that, talking about the number of political parties that participated in the election, I mean major political parties. In the time past, we've never had it the way we had it during the presidential elections, where we have three strong political parties competing. In the time past, we have always been having two. These had actually showed that people are coming up to their responsibility. So talking about the mileage made, it's actually enormous about the mileage made. And I said the other time that power belongs to the people. At the just concluded election, you discover that there are some governors, sitting governors, who vied for the post of senators that were not elected. So it's to show that power actually belonged to people. People voted them out, despite the fact they were sitting governors. We have up to like 3-4 of them that couldn't grab that couldn't win the senatorial seats at the National Assembly while they were still the governor of their state. So it has shown that a lot of mileage, people's consciousness have been awakened. People are beginning to take the responsibility of challenging these so-called political gladiators. And this is not actually unconnected to the sensitization that civil society organizations, media, various sensitizations, various capacity building that civil society organizations, media personnel are actually doing in ensuring that people actually rise to their responsibility. And I normally say something: the greatest office in the land is the office of the citizen. We said, okay, the president is the head of the number one citizen, the number one in the country. Agreed, but no one can actually lord himself over a nation. People have to vote in that president who happens to be the number one. So we can say the office of the citizen is actually the highest office in the land. So these are part of mileage that are actually being recorded as a people. This just concluded a 2023 general election. For stakeholders, when you talk about stakeholders, I can literally someone that has stake in a particular thing, someone that has power, someone that has a say. So these are the people that we'll call stakeholders. Now, talking about the electioneering process, or talking about democracy as a form of government, when you talk about stakeholders, I will say the number one stakeholders are the citizens. As a matter of fact, there cannot be democracy without citizens. So citizens are major stakeholders that have a stake. And it's until when we continue to talk about this, we continue to drive home this point that citizens are one major stakeholders before we now begin to talk about others. Like, take for instance, election management body INEC, they are stakeholders. But INEC cannot actually conduct elections without the citizens. So invariably, citizen is the primary stakeholders. Let me put it that way. And when we talk about primary is actually very important because it's the foundation. So the citizens are the primary stakeholders. Then we now begin to talk about election management body, INEC. They are also stakeholders. We talk about the judiciary. They are also stakeholders in the form of as a form of government. We talk about security operatives. We talk about police, NSCDCs, DSS, and all the like. So these are stakeholders. We talk about anti-graft agencies like AFCC, ICPC. These are stakeholders. Then we talk about the media. One of the major stakeholders. We talk about the media because the role of the media in electioneering process cannot be emphasized. We talk about the media. When you talk about democracy is about you expressing your opinion. You have right to your opinion. You express your own opinion. And when you talk about that, media play significant role in giving voice to the people. So that's why I said media is actually key. Now, civil society organizations, they also play a major role in this democracy. In democracy, the role of civil society organization cannot be overemphasized. So these are stakeholders. And when you talk about stakeholders too, you talk about political parties. As a matter of fact, there is no independent candidate yet in Nigeria. So before you can vie for any post, you have to belong to a political party. So we can say political parties are also stakeholders in democracy. So invariably, we talk about media, civil society organizations, election management body, INEC, we talk about judiciary and all the like. So these are stakeholders that actually work together in ensuring that we have a sustainable democracy. Talking about Nigeria electioneering process now, we cannot have successful election if each of the stakeholders I earlier mentioned refuse to perform their responsibilities. Because this, when you talk about election, I can liken election as a tree standing. Each part of the tree has one or two responsibilities to perform in order to sustain the growth of the tree. Take for instance, if the tap roots refuse to supply nutrients, definitely the leaves will be affected. If the tap roots refuse to tap nutrients from the soil and supply to the branches and all other parts, the tree will die. So the same thing can be likened to the issue of elections, that all the stakeholders that we've talked about must perform their responsibility so that we can have election that will not actually infuriate people. Now, take for instance, stakeholders, especially that has to do with election management body like INEC, like security operative, must promote effective service delivery. This is key. Effective service delivery. Everybody must rise up and perform their functions optimally. And that is effective. Everybody must be effective in their responsibilities. Because take for instance, if INEC is responsible and other maybe security operatives say no, we are not set, or this, it will infuriate people. Even in the INEC structure we are talking about, they still have structures too, because INEC is actually a system. It's just the part of the body. We have many organs that actually form the system. When you talk about circulatory system, now you have many organs. Talk about the heart, we perform it. So all these stakeholders are related, and that is why all these stakeholders must actually perform their role optimally so that things can work out well. I talk about promoting effective service delivery in order to get the expected results and desired results. everybody. I don't want to begin to talk about the lacuna observing the just concluded elections and begin to apportion, okay, this has not done this has not done that. But we all know that there are some abnormalities. There are some few abnormalities that were recorded at the just concluded election, and this is not unconnected to the fact that some people refuse to play their roles. So effective service delivery is one of the roles key stakeholder must play. This effective service delivery is what is linked to professionalism. High level of professionalism. I always like people who performs their roles and responsibility in a good way. Their manner of professionalism is key. That is very important, and that is why in this country we need to embrace that. All this nonchalant attitude, it doesn't concern me, it is not my responsibility and things like that. Stakeholders must actually put all those things aside. Each of the stakeholders have their roles and responsibility. EMP have their own, citizens as a stakeholder, they have their own, political parties have their role to play, judiciary have their role to play, especially in post-election peace building and peacemaking. Judiciary has a key role to play. In post-election, there are a lot of litigations going on now. Judiciary must be neutral. And another role of the stakeholders is they must be non-partisan. They must be non-partisan in terms of discharging their duties. Election is over now. There are a lot of litigations in courts, appeal court, tribunal. Some will get to the Supreme Court and things like that. All the judges, all the people concerned must actually be non-partisan. They must respect the constitution of the land. They must perform their roles and responsibility optimally without any fear or favor. That is when we can actually prevent conflict. That is when we can prevent conflict, which is actually very key. Another role that is very important that cut across all the stakeholders is all the stakeholders must embrace peace. We must talk about peace. We must promote peace. We must talk about peace. Peace must be our watchword. Because take for instance, now we all know what is happening in Sudan now. War-torn countries, where there is no peace, there can't be tranquility, there can't be transparency, there can't be rest of mind. Nobody will be able to perform their roles and responsibility, and that is why everybody must talk about peace. Media, you talk about peace. Civil society organization, these are roles we talk about peace. Political parties will preach peace. Everybody will talk about peace. These are actually very important so that we can have a Nigeria that is desirable, Nigeria that is peaceful, Nigeria that is not that is not divided. All these things are actually very important. And talking about the roles of stakeholders, so there's something I usually say, there is need for stakeholders to actually embrace capacity building. I usually say you cannot give what you don't have actually. What you don't have, you cannot give. And that is why we must place priority to human resources. If you want to build a nation, build the people in that nation. When you talk about institution is bad, this institution is bad, I usually tell people there is no institution that is bad. People that manage bad institutions are the bad people. When people that manage any institution have right mindsets, institution will not be bad. Institution on its own does not have its own mind. People that runs institutions are the people that determines what happens in the institution. When you say an institution is corrupt, forget it. It's the people that make the institution corrupt. And that is why we need to embrace capacity building trainings. Let the right people that needs to attend the training be taught. Let the right people that need to, I have seen some abnormalities when it is time for capacity buildings. Those that will not do the job, those who are not in charge of the job, those are the ones we send for capacity building. Those that will actually do the job, their capacity will not be built. And those that have been sent for capacity building, by the time they return, they find it very difficult to step down. And step down too, it's good, but it cannot be like it. And that is why we need to, embrace capacity building, and we build the right person. We build the right person. We build the person that is directly in charge of that responsibility. Capacity building is not in terms of is the oga that must go. When we realize that it's not the oga that will do the job, let us send those people that will do the job. Let's build their capacity so that we can have optimal results. And that this is how a country progress. If you want to develop a country, you develop the human resources in that country, then you will see the rate at which the country will develop. I read about China. That is how they do. They put the real person that will do the job there. But in Nigeria nowadays, we have turned human resources to contract. They said, okay, you are not the one that will do the job, but okay, let me take the job. So before the job gets to the person that will do the job, oh my God, a lot would have happened. No, as stakeholders, we should embrace capacity building in order to promote professionalism. We need that in this country. And these are the rules of stakeholders. We need that. We need to build our capacity. We need to put value. Our value system must be top-notch. Our value system must be built as stakeholders. We need to build our value system. That is when we can have election that will be free of rancor. That is why we can have institutions that we can be proud of in the country.
Thanks for being part of this episode. Remember, all citizens have a role to play to build a great nation, especially a democratic one. Understanding of the electoral processes, peace, unity, justice, and love are key factors to maintain peace and overall development. This program is facilitated by Institute for Media and Society and funded by the European Union. The content of this broadcast do not reflect the views of Institute for Media and Society, nor that of the European Union.